So let's start creating the use item process. It's going to be long. There's a whole lot of processing involved, but we will make it. Just delete this inventory item here from my standstill scene. And we'll start by creating a new scriptable object called use item data. Okay. And sorry for it to reload. Then we can open it up, and this scriptable object will store the information saying item 1 can be used with item 2, and when they're used, call this function and add this text to reaction. So it's a scriptable object. I think I've deleted a reference here. Okay, great. And inside we're going to have a couple of integers for item ID1, then item ID2, and we'll have a public string reaction text and a public string function name. Okay. Cool. So this is the information that we need when we want to use one item with the other. Next, we'll go back to Unity, and I mentioned before that our let's wait for it to reload. Our inventory item prefab, we will need to interact with it. So I'm gonna add to it a component called button. And it is interactable. I want no transition, just want to click on it, and we will now create a new script that is going to be part of my buttons, and I'm going to call it button controller. Actually, before we do button controller, let's just wait for it to load. I forgot to add the command to my use item data to have it on the create asset menu, so we can create new use item data. Now we can go back to my button controller and get started on it. So our button controller is going to need a whole bunch of references. First of all, the cursor status, then I will need to know the text box controller for my user, then the command text controller as well, so I can change the text with the name of the button I pressed. Then we will need a reference to a class we haven't created yet, which is the use item controller, which is the class that will actually store the functions that are going to be called. The functions that we've registered the name in the scriptable object, they'll be in the use item controller class. So let's leave it comment for now. Then another one is the button item, meaning the item that is stored within the button. And this button item will probably need it outside this class, so I'm gonna add some a way to access it. Button item equals value. Okay, and I think that's it in terms of variables. We need to set these variables now. So cursor status, game object.find, game controller, and we're going to get component cursor status from it. Okay, then text box controller. I'm sorry, it's a text box from our player, so we can show the reaction when we use an object. Get component, text box controller, then our command text controller. Let's find our command text canvas, get component command text controller, and wait, oh, cool. Now we don't need an update for that. We do need a function that's going to be called when the button is pressed. And over here, I first need to know what is my current cursor status. So case cursor status const look at break, and then case cursor status const dot use, which is the important one, break. And over here we're going to do a text plus controller dot show text, and we're going to show the look at text for my button item, and that's timed, so true. And for use, we will still need to create the use item controller class, but this is set item 1 and clear command box. I'm not sure if I need this, but let's leave it like that. And finally, a function that I'm gonna have to call when I first create my button, which is to set the item associated with this button, and button item equals item. That should be a parameter here. Item button item equals item. Okay, cool. So now I'll go to my inventory controller, and once I instantiate my button game object, I'm gonna get the button controller component and set the button item to the item I just picked up. So I have a reference in the button. Let's head back into Unity. And did I already add? I don't think I've added the script to this yet. Okay, I did. And now I'm going to set my on click to run the handle button pressed function. Is it? Oh, I didn't add the button controller script to my prefab. There you go. Now, button controller, handle button pressed. Okay, so if I press play now, let's see what happens. I can pick up my hammer, and can I look at it when I press the button? Okay, so our button is interacting. We just need to now continue setting up our use process, and I'm going to do that by creating the use item controller. Use item controller class. It seems that I have an error here. I just realized it. Maybe it's when I looked. So I'm going to pick up the hammer. Oh, when I picked up the hammer, there's an error on the button controller 24. Command text, canvas. Maybe I just got the name wrong. Oh, it's command box canvas, not command text canvas. Okay. That should fix it. Let's give it a try. Let's just avoid having any errors in our game. Let's pick up the hammer. Okay, now if we go and look at the hammer, okay, it's working. Cool. Great. So now let's create the use item controller script. Use item controller. Let's open it up. And over here, I will, first of all, have two private items that I'm going to use. Let's actually call them use item 1 and use item 2. And let's set public access to these variables. Get return get item use item 1, set use item 1 equals value, and I'm going to copy and paste this. Use item 2. Okay, great. Now beyond that, we are also going to need the use item data information, and we need a list of all use item data that we will use. So use item data, use item data list, new list use item data. Okay, when I start, I'm gonna set my two use items to no. And now back to my button controller, I now can have my use item controller variable, and this variable is going to be on my game. What was the name of the game object again? There was the game controller. So use item controller get component use item controller. Okay, so now when I click on this use game object, I'm gonna get I'm sorry, use item controller dot use item 1 equals button item. So this way I've set the first item. And going back to our use item controller, so on start, I've set it to no. I don't need an update here, and I already have a function here called check for use, which will receive an item called item 2. And now I'm gonna go on for each variable in my used item data list. So I'm going to check each one of the scriptable objects that I have. And I'm going to check if any of these use items 1 and 2. So if v.item ID 1 equals use item 1 dot ID and v.item ID 2 equals item 2.id, or just in case we're doing the other way around, we're missing a parenthesis here, and let's close the first parenthesis, and now we'll do v.item ID 1 equals item 2.id and v.item ID 2 equal use item 1.id. So if I clicked on an item in my inventory and now I'm clicking on an item in the world with the use function enabled, I'm going to set use item 2 to item 2, use item data to v, and then I'm going to start coroutine v.function. I'm going to call the function that is registered on my scriptable object. So public void check for use. Okay. So let me stop and think for a second. What else do I need to do? So we need to now, back in my player controls script, I'm gonna need a reference to the use item controller. So let's do use item controller, and then all the way down on the use action, we are going to check if our target item, if the item I've clicked is not null, and our use item controller dot use item 1 is not null, then I'm going to do use item controller dot check for use with the item I've currently pressed. Okay, now let's get back to Unity. There's a whole bunch of stuff for us to do here. As I said, it's a bit of a complex process. So I'm gonna go to game controller, set use item controller here. Let's leave it empty for now. And on my player, we need to set the use item controller to game controller. And so let's go to our scriptable objects and let's create a use item data. And we'll be using, so hammer, let's call it hammer on taxi. And so hammer is ID 1, taxi is ID 2. So item ID 1, 2. The reaction test is whoops. Hope nobody saw that. And we're going to call the function, let's call it hammer on taxi. Okay, now back to my game controller, I'm going to add this first use item data, and let's see what happens. Actually, before that, of course, we need to set up the function on the use item data. So let's go back to our use item data, and let's create a hammer on taxi, which return, wait for seconds, 0. And for now, I'm just gonna again add a debug just to understand if this is working. Hammer on, hammer on taxi, and okay. Let's press play. Let's see what happens. I'm going to pick up my hammer. Then I'm going to use I'm not sure if this worked. So if I click on taxi, let's just see. Maybe I'm just not updating the command. Yeah, I mean, it worked. Look at that. We got hammer on taxi. Just the command, when I clicked, it didn't update it, and when I went over the taxi, it didn't update it either. So let's try to sort out what is going on here now to update our command box. Okay, so let's get back to our scripts, have a look at them. I think I know what we're missing here. First of all, let's go to our button controller and let's clear the command box. So command text controller dot set command box text. Let's set it to empty. Then in the command text controller, we need a reference to the use item controller, and when I press use, I'm sorry, when I press the button and I'm on use, we are going to, let's check if use item controller dot use item one not null. If that's the case, then command box text dot text equals use item controller dot use item one dot name plus with plus text. Oh my god, I'm sorry, not text, and that's not, it's item name, and that should be actually s equals use. Okay, else I'm just going to show use. Let's remove this, save, and see how it looks. Oh, there's an error here on our text. I forgot to set the use item controller variable on my command box canvas. Okay, let's play. And I'm going to pick up my hammer. And then use hammer with, now it's working beautiful. Use hammer with taxi. And then we get the debug log message hammer on taxi, and now we can work on the function itself, on what should happen when I use the hammer on taxi, which is show the light bulb, enable the light bulb so I can pick it up. Because our light bulb, the game object itself is disabled, finding it, it's a bit trickier, but we can do it. So let's go back to my use item controller, and over here we have the debug. Let's leave it for now, just so we can be sure that it's working. And I'm going to get here an array of item controllers, items in scene equals find objects of type item controller and true. Oh, it's objects. There you go, and true, and I'm passing true as parameter because I can see it includes inactive objects. Now we're going to do a for each in scene. In items in scene, if v, oh my god, v, oh, I'm out of the for each loop. That explains a lot. If v.item.id equals, how do I know that that's going to be? I'm going to need, actually, let's comment this for now, just so it won't throw an error, and let's keep a, let's go to my script, so let's keep a item consts, which are the item IDs, and they were, so we have public static int. So you have the hammer is 1. I think the text is 2. And light bulb is 3, right? Let me just double check. In Unity, scriptable objects. Hammer 1, taxi 2, light bulb 3. So yeah, that is correct. So let's get back here. So if my item ID equals item consts.lightbulb, then v game object set active true. And if use item data lowercase use item data dot reaction text is not empty, then we also show the reaction tag on the player. So find game object with tag player get component that is the text box controller, show text, use item data dot reaction text true, because I want it to disappear after 3 seconds. So that should work. I think we did everything, and we're going to find out now if that's true. I'm going to press play and pick up my hammer. And I'm going to use the hammer with the taxi. And it worked. Here we have our light bulb. I can pick up the light bulb. Have we tried picking up the taxi? Let's see. I don't remember. Yeah, we tried. Okay, so it's working. Our use process, it's working. Great. If we want to create new use cases, which we will to use the light bulb with Globby, the effort now, I mean, we did a whole bunch of stuff, but the effort now is creating functions like this one to handle exactly what's going to happen on the use action. So I'm going to delete this debug. Great. And on the next video, we will get started on the dialog process.